I never thought I'd see the day my parents stood on my doorstep, eyes swollen, voices trembling, asking for my help. For years, they mocked every step I took, every late night I spent chasing a career that wasn't real. To them, I was the family embarrassment, the dreamer who refused to get a proper job. But that morning, everything had flipped. My dad, Charles Porter, the man who used to laugh when I told him I'd make it on my own, was now on the verge of losing his company. And the only person who could save him was me, his foolish daughter, who built a digital design agency from scratch. As they stood there, silent and desperate, I couldn't decide what felt stronger, satisfaction or sadness. Tell me honestly, what would you do if the same parents who mocked your career suddenly came begging for your help? Would you forgive them, or finally let them feel the pain they caused you? My name's Danielle Porter, and growing up I learned early that my parents only respected one kind of success, the kind that came with suits, offices, and titles. My father, Charles Porter, ran a mid-sized construction firm in Ohio. My mother, Linda, was a real estate agent who loved bragging about perfect families at church. I was their disappointment. While my older brother, Ryan, studied business like Dad wanted, I spent my nights sketching designs and editing photos on an old laptop. I dreamed of creating something of my own, a digital design agency that would help small businesses shine online. But every time I mentioned my plans, the laughter followed. Graphic design? Sweetheart, that's not a real job, Mom would say with a smirk. Dad would add, you'll grow out of that phase once the bills come in. I tried to explain my vision, branding, digital marketing, creative storytelling, but they'd just shake their heads. It hurt, more than I let on. I remember sitting at our family dinner table, surrounded by relatives, when my mom joked, Danielle's still playing with colors on her computer. Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. That night, I locked myself in my room and cried quietly, promising one thing. I'd prove them wrong. Not for revenge. Not yet. But because deep down, I knew I was meant for something more than their expectations. The years that followed were the hardest and loneliest of my life. I moved into a tiny apartment above a coffee shop, barely big enough for a desk and a bed. My parents refused to help. They said I needed to learn the value of a real job. But even in that cramped space, surrounded by half-eaten takeout boxes and the hum of my old laptop, I felt free. I poured every ounce of myself into my designs, working with small cafes, local stores, and even nonprofits that couldn't afford fancy agencies. At first, no one believed in me. Not even my brother Ryan, who once told me, "You're wasting your time, Danny. Dad says you'll crawl back home once rent's due." Those words haunted me. Some nights, I'd cry quietly at my desk, staring at my screen through blurred vision, wondering if they were right. But then something shifted. A local bakery I had rebranded went viral after my work caught attention online. Orders flooded in for them, and suddenly people started asking who did their designs. My inbox exploded. I wanted to tell my parents. I wanted them to finally say they were proud. So one evening, I went back home for dinner, thinking maybe things would be different. But when I told them about my clients and my growing business, Mom chuckled. Danielle, sweetheart, anyone can make pretty pictures on the internet. It's not a career. Dad nodded. Let's talk again when you get a real paycheck. That broke something inside me. I drove home that night, tears streaming, but also determination burning. If they couldn't see my worth now, I'd make sure one day they wouldn't be able to ignore it. Months turned into years, and so did my quiet rise. Clients started coming from other states, then from overseas. I registered my own company, Porter Creative Studio, though I kept the Porter name only as a reminder of where I came from. I didn't post flashy success photos or brag on social media. I just worked day after day, night after night, until my designs were featured in national campaigns. And while my parents still dismissed what I did, I noticed something different in their voices when we occasionally spoke. A hesitation, a quiet curiosity. It was subtle, but I could feel it. The balance was shifting. One evening, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. A construction firm was facing a branding crisis, outdated website, poor digital presence, and a public reputation issue. They needed a rebrand immediately, or they'd lose major contracts. The name of that firm? Porter Construction. My father's company. When I saw the email, I froze. My father's company, the same one that once laughed at my childish dream, now needed my help to survive. For a moment, I almost deleted it, but something inside me whispered, no, they need to see who you've become. So I replied professionally, under my company name. We scheduled a meeting. They didn't know it was me. When the day came, I walked into the conference room in a tailored navy suit, hair pulled back, portfolio in hand. My father sat at the end of the table, flipping through notes with that familiar air of control. My mother sat beside him, nervous but pretending to be confident. Thank you for coming, he said without looking up. We really need a strong firm to handle our rebrand. When he finally looked at me, his eyes widened. Danielle, he whispered. I smiled calmly. Hello, Dad. I believe you said you needed help from a real professional. The silence that followed was delicious. My mother's face turned pale. She stammered something about not realizing it was you. I sat down, opened my laptop, and presented my proposal: flawless branding strategy, digital plan, full redesign package, all priced at a premium. They agreed without argument. For the next few months, my team and I rebuilt their entire image. Their company survived, but only because of the daughter they once ridiculed. And when the final presentation ended, I simply said, invoices are due within 15 days. No bitterness. No shouting. Just quiet victory. As I walked out of that office, I realized revenge didn't always need flames. Sometimes it just needed success to burn bright enough. After that day, I expected to feel triumphant, like I'd finally won. And for a while, I did. There was a quiet satisfaction in knowing they finally saw me for who I truly was. But late at night, when the office lights dimmed and my phone stopped buzzing, I'd catch myself wondering, why did their approval ever matter so much to me? I had built a company from the ground up. I had clients who respected me, employees who believed in me, and a life that was mine. Yet, part of me still carried the scars of those years spent trying to be enough for my parents. A week after the project ended, my mom called. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. Danielle, we're proud of you, she said. We were wrong. I didn't cry. I didn't even smile. I just breathed. Because in that moment, I realized something powerful. Revenge wasn't about making them suffer. It was about reclaiming my worth. I didn't need their validation anymore. Their mockery had built the fire that shaped me. And now, that same fire was lighting my future. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't their apology. It's finally being at peace with yourself. Life after that turning point felt lighter. For the first time, I wasn't chasing approval. I was simply living the life I built with my own hands. My company kept growing. Within a year, I opened a second office in Austin, hired 10 new designers, and partnered with several national brands. People respected me, not because of my family name, but because of my work. And as for my parents, things slowly changed. Dad started calling once a week, not to lecture, but to ask for advice. Mom began sending me small texts. Saw your ad on TV. So proud. At first, it felt strange. Then I realized this was their way of apologizing. One evening, we sat together for dinner for the first time in years. There were no jokes about my career, no sarcastic comments. Just quiet understanding. Dad looked across the table and said, "You proved us wrong, Danielle. And I'm glad you did." That moment didn't erase the pain, but it brought closure. Now, when I walk into my studio every morning, sunlight spilling through the glass walls, laughter echoing from my team, I smile. Because this life, this peace, wasn't given to me. I earned it through every doubt, every tear, every you can't. And that, more than anything, is my revenge. They used to laugh when I said I'd make something of myself. Now they introduce me as their daughter, the successful designer who saved the family business. Funny how life works, isn't it? But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting the people who doubted you. It's about finding the strength to rise anyway, to turn every insult into fuel, every failure into fire. Because once you finally become everything they said you couldn't, you realize you never needed their approval, only your own. So tell me, what would you do if your parents mocked your dreams? Comment your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe.